So once we see liquidity really start to take off, I think that's what will propel Bitcoin to, a 500K valuation, maybe a million, who knows.
Inflation comes in a bit lower, and just like that, Bitcoin is back at 100K and is looking ready to make its next big move up. Today, you'll hear the case for increasing global liquidity and why the potential for 3 to 4 rate cuts in 2025 could propel Bitcoin upwards of $475,000 by year's end. Plus, we hear from former PayPal exec and Trump's pick for AI and crypto czar, David Sachs, tell us the real use case and value of Bitcoin and why other coins like XRP don't stand a chance. Markets quickly went from tepid and fearful to hot and confident after a lower than expected inflation print from the Fed yesterday. Bitcoin is back around 100K, and with Trump only days away from being sworn in, all signs are pointing to an absolutely explosive year for the world's first and only truly scarce digital money. Federal Reserve Governor Christopher Waller has suggested 3 to 4 rate cuts may be on the table this year, which means what many Bitcoiners expected coming into this year. Global liquidity will be off to the races in 2025. Dr. Jeff Ross, founder and managing director of Vailshire Capital Management, has been one of the most outspoken about Bitcoin's price being tightly tied to global liquidity levels. He was on What Bitcoin Did the other day and gave his thoughts on where rising liquidity could take Bitcoin this year.
It is inevitable, and I've been saying this for years and years and years, it's inevitable that Bitcoin will eventually become the world's reserve currency and the world's reserve asset. We're on that trajectory. People hate the term inevitable because they think that implies no human effort. I think there's going to be tons of human effort from Bitcoiners who understand Bitcoin, and because of that effort, Bitcoin will become inevitably the world's reserve asset and the world's reserve currency in time, in decades.
I completely agree with that. And I think that hands are going to be forced as well. Like I'm fairly confident from people I've spoken to that the UAE hold a significant amount of Bitcoin, whether that's 200, 300, 400,000 coins, whatever. That's going to play into it. And I think that may end up forcing the US's hand in some way, maybe quite quickly. But in terms of like this Bitcoin cycle, how important do you think the US involvement is?
I think it's just basically I think it's important for this cycle, as you say. I think it's going to be the main driver that will push us to the next level. So I'm still holding on to my thesis or my guess of Bitcoin at a price target of about 475,000 by the fourth quarter of 2025. And that's because of now mild nation state involvement. So the US will probably get involved to some degree. That should start a bit of a foot race for Bitcoin, but I don't think it will be as impressive as a lot of people think. We had MicroStrategy last cycle. Now we have a handful of companies doing the Bitcoin treasury strategy. Mm-hmm. It's great to see, but it's still just a teeny tiny drop in the bucket so far. But that's enough, I think, enough interest to help push the price higher in this next cycle. So once we see liquidity really start to take off, I think that's what will propel Bitcoin to, a 500K valuation, maybe a million, who knows. My range is anywhere from 200,000 to a million at some point. And then I think people will get over leveraged again, like people always do, because they get caught up in the hype and they do stupid things. And then we have another crash after that. And then the next cycle, I think, will be more of nation state involvement kind of early on. And we'll start seeing nation states stacking at a more significant level.
So even with just mild nation state involvement, Dr. Jeff is predicting Bitcoin to rocket towards $500,000 per coin by the end of the year. I tend to agree with Ross on his point that nation state involvement is likely to be very tepid at best this cycle. Just like last cycle in 2021, everyone was hyped about institutional and corporate adoption on the backs of MicroStrategy and Tesla, but the big wave of institutional adoption didn't materialize and has now become the big driver of this cycle after the launch of the ETFs. I think it's a safe bet to assume the same thing will happen this cycle, but with nation-state adoption. Nations are just starting to dip their toes in, but the bigger wave of nation-states will likely be the big driver of the next cycle in 2028 and 2029. This is just another example of the slow and methodical march of Bitcoin towards becoming the global reserve currency. It's not going to happen overnight, but will be a process that unfolds along with its continued monetization. Someone else that gets this inevitable march towards global dominance is Samson Mow of Jan3. Here's a clip of Mow explaining how undervalued Bitcoin is here at 100K and why there is no top to its price.
So I would say Bitcoin is undervalued even at 100,000. My thinking is we should have probably been at 200 by now. But given all of the current macroeconomic conditions, the failure of fiat currencies around the world, the need for central banks to intervene constantly, and just the general perception of Bitcoin changing after the ETFs launched, I believe that changed the entire game. I really don't think there is anywhere else to go but to Bitcoin. And this trend will simply continue as conditions and more uncertainty arises in the world. So you might think, okay, Bitcoin is a tech stock. It's trading well. I'm going to exit out of this position and go into something else. But there is really nothing else to go into. Like, what do you want to hold? Real estate, gold, fiat money? I don't know. I don't think any of those things are worth holding. If the trend is that corporations like MicroStrategy are rapidly stacking Bitcoin, nation states are rapidly accumulating Bitcoin, nation states are making Bitcoin legal tender, adding it to treasuries, these things are a sea change. And I believe it signifies that Bitcoin is on the way to become the reserve asset of the financial system. So my view is there is no top. And the best thing you can do is buy at any given time that you have the opportunity and the capital to buy.
So why can we have confidence that the value of Bitcoin will continue to go up forever? One often misunderstood reason is the technological breakthrough that Bitcoin and only Bitcoin represents. David Sachs, a former PayPal executive and Trump's pick for AI and crypto czar, understands this technological breakthrough very well. Here he is explaining what makes Bitcoin as a technology totally unique.
The thing that all these critics don't seem to understand is the technology. That's the common denominator, whether it's Howard Marks or Warren Buffett or Charlie Munger, whoever, they're all great investors or whatever, but they're not technologists.
It's a blind spot.
It's a blind spot. And the thing they don't understand about the technology is that Bitcoin is the first digital asset to ever be created that you can't create infinite copies of, right? So think about a song or a photo or a video or whatever, anything that's digital, you've always been able to make an infinite number of copies. Isn't that what the word digital means, is that it's infinitely copyable? So how do you have digital money that can't just be infinitely copied? Obviously, that would destroy the value. And that was the genius of Bitcoin, is that every transaction is written into this ledger, the blockchain is decentralized, and nobody over the last decade or so has figured out how to counterfeit Bitcoin, how to make a duplicate, how to double spend Bitcoin.
So Bitcoin is the invention of digital scarcity. It's the first and only digital currency that we can confidently say will never be debased, since it's the only digital currency that is truly free from centralized control. If you're more new to the crypto space, you might start hearing about alternate coins like XRP being legitimate alternatives to Bitcoin. This is simply not true. XRP was started and is still controlled by a company called Ripple. Who's to say Ripple won't change the monetary policy of XRP in the future? The problem is that all other digital currencies and fiat currencies have a big red button that can be pressed at will. And the history of empire and nation-state controlled money proves this will always happen. If it can be corrupted, you better believe us humans will corrupt it. Bitcoin is the actualization of what famed Austrian economist F.A. Hayek prophesied back in 1984.
I don't believe that we should ever have a good money again before we take the thing out of the hands of government. Then we can't take them violently out of the hands of government. All we can do is, by some sly roundabout way, introduce something they can't stop.
Bitcoin is that sly roundabout way. It is already the only money that the government can't stop. Bitcoin represents our only viable chance to separate money from state. So don't listen to the bag pumper saying Trump will buy XRP. He won't. It's interesting to note that Ripple, the company who started XRP, spent millions of dollars trying and failing to smear Bitcoin by funding a misleading Greenpeace campaign demonizing his energy use. I wonder what they're afraid of. The same Ripple was also a massive donor to the Kamala Harris campaign, Trump's opponent. Pretty sure Trump is aware of this and will stay far clear of Ripple and XRP. Also, you don't have to look far to see the truth. XRP may have seen its first significant rise in its US dollar denominated price recently, but just look at it priced in Bitcoin and it becomes clear what's really happening. XRP is still down 80% from its Bitcoin denominated all-time high from way back in 2017. Mark my words, XRP and all other crypto coins will trend to zero when priced in Bitcoin. So I implore you, focus on Bitcoin and cut out the rest of the noise. Help separate money from state once and for all. We have one chance at this. And you can do this through Swan. Visit swan.com or download the app by searching for Swan Bitcoin in the App Store. You go from sign up to buying Bitcoin in minutes. Plus, you get your first $10,000 in Bitcoin purchases with zero fees. Also, big news for those that live in New York, Swan's complete suite of Bitcoin financial services is now available in the Empire State. So visit swan.com to get started today. And a quick shout out to Mara, the largest publicly traded Bitcoin miner, for supporting this show and for helping make Bitcoin the world's most decentralized and secure monetary network. That's it for today. Let me know what you think of 470k Bitcoin this year in the comments below. Like this video, share it with friends, and subscribe to the channel for more high signal Bitcoin content. Thanks for watching, and remember, TikTok, next block.